Okay. Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, we haven't solved the streaming issue. It's always French people. They're not awake yet. But you have a French person on stage who's very live and awake. So this will compensate, and you will be able to repeat everything you hear until we have the live streaming launched to the people that ask you about it, I'm sure. So good morning. I hope everyone is okay. I hope you have enjoyed yesterday and taken it all in. I hope you have had time to see a little bit of Venice, maybe. We will try and finish earlier than yesterday today so that you have more time to see the city for those of you that are not living during the afternoon. I will be your moderator, facilitator for the day. Please bear with me. I'm very sorry for all the speakers. I've decided that I will pronounce your name in the French way. It's easier, and I tend to have very little memory right now, so even if I tried, I would mess it up. Today will be a French day from beginning to end. What we have on the schedule for today is a first panel on evaluating the criteria. So yesterday we have worked on learning the criteria. Today we will explore how to actually verify it and how to work with it. And so the panel will very much rely on panel 2 that looked into the QA aspect of things, but more practically speaking. We will also try and reflect on the roles of the different actors that we mentioned yesterday, ENCA, ECAR, of course, QA agencies, ministries, etc. We will also have a poster session which will bring very concrete feedback from all the alliances and how they have tried so far to experiment, adjust, negotiate, and build learning pathways towards the label. And finally, we will have the heart of the day, which is a co-creation workshop in which you will be working in groups, again, on creating one of the first shared self-assessment tools, which we hope will be a successful output of our workshop and will be an output that we can continue nourishing in the upcoming months until the label is actually released, and that will be used by all of you. It will be a very ambitious exercise, and it will be very ambitious for us using everything you produce in the afternoon to actually create a tool afterwards. And for this reason, we ask you to be very concrete in everything that you share today in this co-creation workshop. We ask you to speak of all the tools, the documents, the workflows, the decision chains that you would like to hear of and read of in the self-assessment tool that we will create. We ask you to be very honest when you mention challenges. Don't only mention the ones that you are allowed to share politically speaking. Mention all challenges that you are facing because those need to be shared within our community. And we ask you to be bold because we need to create something for this label. And if we don't propose solutions that go beyond what we currently have, then there's really no point of working on it. This is how the day will go. To start with, I will invite the moderator of our first panel, How Do We Evaluate These Criteria, to join me on stage, Ulrike Cravagna from the University of Graz and the Arcus European University Alliance. Ulrike brings over 2 decades of experience in internationalization, curriculum development and joint program management. She played a key role in the early implementation of the Bologna process as Bologna coordinator of the University of Graz. and later leading major Tempus and Erasmus Mundus projects. And today she oversees Grad's portfolio of joint programs, including Erasmus Mundus programs. And she has also contributed to Australia's national legal framework for joint programs and is an active member of the ARCUS working group on innovative learning pathways. So please, Ulrike, join me on stage.
Okay. So thank you, Mara, for the kind introduction, and also thank you for already introducing a little bit our next panel, so then I can keep my introduction quite short. So yeah, welcome to this third panel session. I would like to start with a short personal remark, because as you heard, I'm implementing joint programs already more than 20 years, and actually the first joint program we implemented at the University of Graz was with Foscari University. So already in 2004 we started creating 2 joint programs, and in 2007 I already sat here. No, wait. I was not sitting here. I was the one preparing the cooperation agreements to be signed by the rectors here on stage. And so I'm very happy that today I can sit here and be your moderator for these panel discussions. And I'm also happy to say that those 2 joint programs that were implemented at the time are still running successfully with more than 6 partner universities, and among those, Foscari University. So just to start with a short personal story. So yeah, this today's session, as Mara already said, we will shift the focus a little bit towards the practical and the operational side of the implementation of the European degree label. Namely, we will talk more about the verification process. So we will talk about how the label criteria could be verified, who should be responsible for this verification process, how this verification process could be embedded in already existing structures. And to talk about this and explore all this, I'm very honored to share the panel here with a wide range of experts who will share their extensive experience and also their perspectives and views with me here on stage. So let me introduce you to the 4 panelists, and I hope you don't mind if I read a little bit in the bios. So the first one I would like to welcome is Neringa Naputiene, so I hope that I pronounce everything well. And okay, sorry, I have to say something else. You did not pronounce my name the French way, Mara. You very well pronounced it, because otherwise I would be male, because the French way always says Ulrike. So Neringa Naputiene, she is the EU Connexus Institutional Coordinator at the Catholic University of Valencia, Spain, and has extensive experience in international program management, international student recruitment, and foreign qualification, as well as in European project management. She is coordinating joint programs and setting up joint programs, and one of them is an Erasmus Mundus joint master program. And she was also a member of one of the piloting projects, the EDFISH project. So welcome. Yeah, so the next one is Alexander Shuzhner. He will share his experiences and perspectives from 2 sides, because he is currently, since 2024, the director of the European Quality Assurance Register. And he was also a member of the University of Rijeka and the institutional coordinator of one of the alliances, the EUFE Alliance. So his role in ECHR includes operational management and organization and supporting the decision-making of ECHR expert body, but he's also a real expert in the European approach. And as the institutional coordinator from Rijeka University, he was also leading one of the piloting projects, the FOREU4ALL project. So welcome. So for the next one, I really wanted to make an effort and pronounce the name correctly, but he said to me that even Romanians do not pronounce it correctly, so I pronounce it the English way. So I would like to welcome Alexandru Cartis, who is the head of the Civis Education Unit within the Civis European University Alliance, coordinating the alliance-level structures that support the design and implementation of joint programs and also other joint educational activities. He has expertise with the European degree, as everybody of us here on stage, but he is also a leading expert and project management assistant in the SMART project. He currently serves as an expert on the advisory board of the European Degree Policy Lab and is an assistant professor at the Faculty of Psychology at the University of Bucharest. So welcome. And I'm very happy that on this panel we will also have the perspectives and the views of the students present. So I welcome Tamara Jobanu. So she will contribute to this panel with her extensive experience as a student representative. So she is a steering committee member of the Global Student Forum, is currently also pursuing studies in sustainable development and environmental management at Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj-Napoca, with a strong background in education policies and the student movement. She was previously the Vice President for Educational Policies and later also the Vice President for International Affairs within the National Alliance of Student Organizations in Romania. And she was also the executive committee member of the European Students' Union, ESU. So welcome. So I don't know if we have the right order. Almost. Yeah. Unfortunately, I prepared also another joke like Laura with the sandwich, but unfortunately the setting on the panel is not the way it was supposed to be, because I wanted to say that the two Alex are now in the middle of the sandwich, but it is not the case. So sorry for that. Yeah, so I would like to start with the first question, which is for Neringa. So yesterday I noted down several things because already yesterday we talked a little bit about the verification processes, also in the two other panel sessions. And yesterday we were told that the labeling and verification process should be not so hard, and it should be easy. But we all know implementing joint programs and setting up joint programs is never easy. So I'm wondering, Neringa, from your perspective, what experiences of alliances and also from the pilot projects can be used to develop such a verification, such simple but still meaningful, as we heard yesterday, verification process?
Thank you, Ulrike. Good morning, everyone. Let me answer straight to your question. Setting the program and implementing it, joint program, is not an easy. But to verify if the joint program meets the criteria, well, I would try to argue that it is really easy and should be very simple. Well, we can discuss later on. It's still the first session of the morning, and we did some exercise coming on the stage. So now I would like all of you who have tried to verify if your joint program meets the criteria to stand up. Those who have tried to kind of overview how it is going on. Okay. And you not? You don't have anymore?
Not anymore.
Okay, some few of you. Please stay standing, those who thought that this process was actually easy, fast, and it was not difficult to find the evidence. Yeah? Well, it's morning, a little bit. Well, those who have tried, thank you so much. Those who have tried, they see that from your perspective, program developers or evaluators or with expertise in quality assurance, it is rather easy process. So, well, in formal and informal conversations we were having yesterday, last week, and all the last months, probably the most debating or the most confusing criteria were the ones that kind of related to European dimension, and how much that part of verification of compliance to criteria are related to the quality assurance process, and should it be delegated to quality assurance agencies, etc., etc. So, as yesterday my colleague Fernando Galán teased you, it should be really easy exercise based on a couple of documents that are typically presented when you go for program accreditation. And then maybe I would like to give you an example of EDL Ready, the EU Connexus Joint Master Program in Marine Biotechnology. Fingers crossed, 2026, we will be one of those labeled ones. What documents or evidences we already had that we could prove that the program meets the criteria. And maybe we could show the slide. I think you have it, the next one. Yes, thank you, Laura, a lot. Okay, this is very small font, so I will try to emphasize a couple of aspects very briefly. Will not be describing everything. So we tried to use those main documents that we were preparing when designing the program, when thinking about the implementation of the program, and, well, basically the documents that we were presenting for accreditation. So we looked at the report of external evaluation, which was ECHO-registered French agency HCRS. Then, of course, joint cooperation agreement, if I'm not mistaken, was 12 annexes, and joint quality assurance guidelines, which were one of the annexes of the cooperation agreement, plus a couple of government's documents. So within these, let's say, 3 documents, we found that 80–90% of evidence was already there. And basically, we say that EDL verification was just a matter of finding and organizing existing proof and not creating a new paper. So that should be really an easy process. And maybe inspired by FOCI.
Anything goes.
Again, project. We would like to propose one simple kind of tool, 3-column self-assessment table, which could be part of EDL application even, where we have criterion, compliance, and source of evidence. That could be the reference to a couple of the documents. So, for example, a couple of examples. So if we want to show joint delivery on recognition, so we always could go to the cooperation agreement or annexes, evaluation report that shows joint degree, joint admission, automatic credit recognition, everything that is required for this criteria. Employability and stakeholder engagement. So compulsory internship is there, external advisory board, strong involvement of employers in the program. All these evidences are in the program curriculum and cooperation agreement, also certified that we meet this in HCRS report. Transnational campus, again, the same documents to show how different offices of the universities contribute to the delivery, implementation, joint student services of the program. So to make this table, Fernando, could you remind us what you were saying yesterday? How long did it take you? 2 hours. Just a remark that Fernando was not a part of developers of this program, but he has and expertise in program developments, verification, accreditation, and so on. So it's really a short process. And well, basically for accredited joint program, EDL verification should be very thin layer, if any, to spot what are the compliance to the criteria. And then maybe we could go to another slide that I asked Ulrike to do, another program of ARCUS. Let me see what this stands for. Joint Master in Translation Technologies and Artificial Intelligence. And this program is new, being prepared for accreditation. And I asked Ulrike to do a similar table yesterday. So how long did it take you?
I mean, just to put in where you could find the relevant information. I did this exercise yesterday afternoon. It took me around 30 minutes. But I'm very deeply involved in the, in the development process of this program.
So exactly, maybe even this table as such could be a part of the application for EDL, for example, where the applying program could say, look, for this evidence, you could go and look concrete examples there and then in these documents. So, well, in both cases, accredited program and under accreditation, different alliances, different approaches, different study fields, different maturity of the programs. We proved the equivalence to EDL criteria using the same basic model and using 3-5 accreditation and governance documents, also referring to Erasmus Charter, referring to some alliance mission statements. So very similar documents, and a lot of things were based on actually consortium agreement. And this is very important document for not only accreditation and then EDL verification, but also implementation of the program, as we all know. So the main message that we would like to transfer to all stakeholders, from program developers to university administration to policymakers, quality assurance agencies, that verification of EDL criteria should not repeat the full program accreditation. It should be a light checkup to see whether the joint program meets additional EDL criteria. So as we are talking now, binary compliance. You were asking a little bit about the pilots. So in the pilots, we were checking this, but there were too many philosophical questions to answer, whether we go to the EDL label or European degree or whatever other scenarios could be developed. So I will not go to the history, which is not relevant anymore, because what the timeline and the policies we have now, it is based on the experience from the pilots. But I would like to stress a couple of recommendations, repeating in all 6 pilot projects on European degree label, on how this verification process should look like. To use ESGs and European approach, not to create new documents, but reuse the evidence, keep the process light, clear, low cost, align, if possible, accreditation with EDL verification, the cycles, and it's also what we found in the pilots, and then what we were discussing internally at our alliance, for example. Staff has to know how to interpret EDL criteria, maybe to prepare for verification, to apply for a label. But the most important thing is also to think proactively how these criteria could be embedded in the program development. So we say that really staff training is a must of this process. And well, as always, targeted Erasmus Plus support for staff training and communities of practice, as one of these we have today, would be very useful. So I was quite confident until now, but still we have questions. And maybe Alexander could follow up on that in your part of this panel. QA systems are usually relying on graded scales. Fully compliant, half not complying. We say that we would like to have it ideal verification binary and light, so will it stay as it is planned right now? Could it stay? Some programs maybe do not meet or do not find the proof of the criteria in the programs, and they want to include them. So how likely the program will have to go through new accreditation instead of re-accreditation process? What would be the lines? And the last question that I would like to say, but not the last question in the list, what's next? Reapplying for the label after 6 years period, for example, will the process be the same, evidence search, or we will be looking for quality evidences, how we were implementing those criteria in the previous, let's say, accreditation phase. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very practical contribution, and also already presenting to us like kind of a toolkit checklist for all of us. Yeah, so when you have a fully fledged and really integrated joint program that has already produced all the documentation, it should be quite easy to go through a verification process. I know we talked about this yesterday already a little bit, Alexander, in our bilateral talks, that you have a slightly different perspective also on the role of the consortium agreement. And I also wanted to add that yesterday we were also talking about a little bit, and we heard in the audience that there is some fear that this verification process could create some additional bureaucratic and financial burden to the consortia. And we know, creating a joint program is already kind of a burden. I already say that to my colleagues that creating and implementing a joint program is kind of the best resilient staff training program you can have in a university. So having this in mind, I wanted to ask you, Alexander, what tools and indicators would be, in your opinion, the most effective ones for verifying the European degree label criteria, and how this process could be implemented to minimize the burden for the programs?
Yes, thank you for that. And I mean, obviously, the overall goal of, I think, everyone who discusses this is simplification. So I think that's clear as a goal. Then the question is, how do we operationalize that goal? And here I would maybe split it in a more procedural dimension of it, and and let's say the substantive dimension of it, which is the verification of criteria themselves, and how you assess the criteria one by one. On a procedural level, I think that what is crucial is that all parts of the system fulfill their role, so to speak, and that we do not add additional procedures to the existing ones. This is what you have already heard in the panel number 2, that procedurally speaking, we need to integrate this with the joint program accreditation, hopefully through the European approach. And if that is possible, then it's relatively simple. I really have to reiterate one point. I always bring it up myself, that Jan Mel mentioned yesterday. This is not the first label, and sometimes the discussion is as if this is the first label existing in higher education. No, it's not. Quality assurance agencies are already issuing labels together with accreditation processes. An agency does an accreditation of a university, which is typically mandatory. That's why it's accreditation. And then university can opt to have some additional label, or even labels, multiple, which are then packaged together with the accreditation processes. It's just that, as far as I know, this is the first time that we are applying it to joint programs, but that doesn't change the fundamental methodological reality, which is that, yes, we can package labeling evaluations with external quality assurance and with accreditation processes. So that's what we need to do with the European degree label in order to make it as simple as possible. Again, that still leaves the question of what to do when European approach is not available, but maybe let's leave that aside. If there are some specific questions in the discussions, we can go deeper into that. I think it's clear that by now, this is also in the draft guidelines, that the quality assurance agencies registered in ECHAR, hence you can trust them to be ESG compliant, would authorize the consortia to issue or award the label, right? So the mechanism is quite clear. There is a methodology developed at the European level. There is an agency that authorizes the consortium to award the label, or let's say to award the degrees which would carry this label. So I guess that this is something that there is almost a consensus on, or full consensus on, that this is how procedurally this should work in order to minimize additional burden for everyone in the system. But let's go a bit more in the substantive part, which is what we have heard from Neringa, and this is a very interesting example. And here I would first recall my experiences from my previous job, and when I was coordinating the FOSSAI project, so you have heard now another alternative pronunciation, don't worry about it. And we did a simulation, right? This was the old version, let's call it the old version of the criteria, or the first version of the criteria that was published before the projects were even starting. So we decided to do a simulation. We literally formed small panels, like 3-person panels. We asked the programs to do self-assessment, something of the kind that we have just seen. And then we asked these small panels to actually apply the criteria to these programs. Now, there are several people in the room who are participating in the project, including Mario Calabrese from University of Strasbourg, and Epicure Alliance, who was actually coordinating that evaluation process, or the simulation of an evaluation. And one very interesting finding for us is that it actually took more time, both on the side of the program staff, program coordinators, and everyone else involved in the program itself, and on the side of the evaluation panels, to actually do this evaluation. So that was one of the lessons learned. Now, why? So I'll just describe what happened, and maybe we can draw some conclusions from that. The self-assessment part, what we have just heard about, can indeed be quite simple. But I would argue the self-assessment part, in terms of making a certain mapping of which information can be found where, can be relatively simple if you're experienced and you know the matter, even in accreditation processes. It's not difficult to go through the accreditation standards and check where the panel can find some information. So that part can indeed be done quite quickly. The question is, what about the next steps? What about the actual evaluation of whether what is in these documents is actually true in reality? And this is where we can really take many different paths. And this is perhaps a good moment to say that, as opposed to when I worked at the University of Rijeka and the UFA Alliance, where I could come into these type of events and say, this is what we need, this is what we want. As ECHAR, we have no view, we have no horse in this race, no policy or political view, at least. We are a technical body. Essentially, we exist to verify ESG compliance of agencies. So, whatever you want and whatever the ministers accept at the end, that is how it's going to be. But the only thing that I can give you is some more advice or suggestions from the perspective of doing this type of external quality assurance for quite some time. And one thing that I honestly believe is that everything that is purely paper-based, document-based, first of all, very quickly loses its value, turns into an administrative exercise, purely bureaucratic exercise, which is like, the worst stereotype on external quality assurance and accreditation. It's like these people coming in, forcing us to tick these boxes. So this is something that European quality assurance has spent decades trying to move away from. So from that perspective, my suggestion would be not to do that with the European degree label evaluations, but also that really the documents themselves are, how to put this, they have an interesting relationship with reality. And I'm not saying that people are lying in the documents. I'm saying that the relationship is really much more complex. The reality sometimes becomes very interesting once you dig deeper and you see how things actually manifest themselves in reality. Sometimes the interaction between different parts of the documents or different regulations creates very interesting realities, especially for those who are most concerned here, and these are the students who are attending this program and future graduates. Just have in mind the creativity that all of you and all of us, I used to work on this, had to exhibit navigating these regulations to construct a joint program. Could you understand it from simply reading the national regulation? Often no. That being said, it is very important to have in mind the distinction between the first evaluation, what in external QA we would call initial accreditation, and then subsequent evaluations or re-accreditations, to take the quality assurance analogy. This is coming back to your final question, Neringa, because when a program is only starting, then it is true, the only thing you have are the documents. I mean, there are no students there yet to interview. You could interview teachers about curriculum development, program structure, etc. But you cannot really check how something is operating when it's not operating yet, right? But that's why, and that's what I always say, the first real evaluation of any program is the first evaluation after the initial evaluation, because that's when you see how things work in reality. Again, to come back to my point, it is up to all of you, not even in this room, obviously, but with other stakeholders and the ministries to decide in which way to take it. It can be extremely simple. It can be very difficult. Where to find this optimal balance is what I would say is the key. But in order for this to demonstrate a real added value, it has to be more than just a compliance check of the documents themselves, of one person sitting behind the desk and doing a check. Here I will compare it with the European standards and guidelines and the more methodological prescriptions there about how external QA is being done. So the ESG prescribes how the agencies must evaluate universities. And don't take this point the wrong way, that I mean that because it's in this ESG, that's why it has to be done that way in the label. That is not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is think about why we have prescribed certain things the way they are prescribed in the ESG. For example, why is there a requirement that there is a review panel composed of diverse experts, including always, in 100% of cases, students, that needs to check and evaluate the program or the institution? And believe me, there are issues with that. There are systems, including big, important systems, which are not compliant with these requirements of the ESG and are pushing or advocating for relaxing these requirements. If you have seen the new draft of the ESG, you have seen that we have decided not to relax this requirement. Now, why? What's the background thinking? It is that this is basically an exercise of trying to determine truth or reality about something that is very complex. You will never achieve 100% reliability, never. It is impossible. But how do you make it as reliable as possible? It is to form a panel which is composed of diverse perspectives, all with their relevant expertise, who then interview, again, different stakeholders. You interview students, you interview the teachers, the academic staff, the professional staff, the management, and in that way you triangulate. This is literally a process of triangulation, and through that you create something that is as close to reality as it can be, and only then you get the real picture. All I'm saying is that is the logic that I would always suggest that is applied to the European degree label as well. And finally, I made this point already from the audience yesterday. I think we need to be very clear. We need to be very clear about what the differences are between the European degree label and the quality criteria or accreditation criteria in substance. I was very happy to hear Jan Meld yesterday that in the ensuing revision of the operational guidelines, everything having to do with quality standards will be kind of bracketed, will maybe even be put as an eligibility requirement. I think that would be really helpful in clarifying the situation, because currently when you read this, the criteria, people are of course asking, but we have already checked this through our accreditation, will this be checked again? So it's very, there's an answer to that, of course, that is no, but you know, like when you read the document, when you read the criteria, it kind of intuitively leads you in the wrong direction. So it's much better that really we make a mapping, we make a clear mapping of which European degree label criteria are already basically met fully if you have passed the European approach accreditation, and then we can just leave those aside. Those are automatically met if you have been successfully accredited. And then all the things that we have actually talked so far, and I think we will talk about in the panel further, should only be for those criteria that
I will have a look at the time.
Yeah, this is my final sentence, literally. So only for those criteria that are not already met through the accreditation procedure.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. It was really very interesting what you said, and I fully support everything. Yeah, but we have very strict rules here, and I was always watching in the direction of Laura, so I got already nervous. And of course, we won't give you enough time also to ask your questions after all the statements from the panel. Yes, so thank you very much about that. So everything is about, you know, having it simple as possible and meaningful as possible. Having, let's say, two parts. We already agreed that the European degree label goes beyond the European approach qualification. Therefore, we still need to think how to integrate that perhaps in already existing structures in our institutions and also in our countries. And also yesterday I noted down something that as a joint program coordinator, it always alerts me a little bit when I heard that there should be room for interpretation where possible, because interpretation, very bad word for joint program coordinators, because it very often leads to even more complexity and more challenges and the need for being more creative, as we heard yesterday. So having heard all this, Alexandru, I would like to ask you now, what is your perspective on that, and how could all those criteria and all those processes we already heard now be embedded in our already existing QA systems and processes?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here, and thank you so much from the organizers for inviting also me to be able to share a couple of thoughts, both from Civis and also from the Policy Lab Advisory Board. And of course, taking of course of the ideas shared by Neringa before and Alexander, I would say it's important that I don't repeat myself saying, well, that, I mean, we see obviously that the criteria and the way we are driving them together with the member states is to be embedded in the processes as much as possible. So of course, simplification was mentioned yesterday a lot, today even more. So I would a bit to challenge the thought of today, especially thinking about the co-creative session that will follow, and to challenge a bit your insights and what input the community that you are representing so wonderfully can bring. Because I'm always thinking back of, for example, in our alliance, and of course we also did this exercise, a really nice one to see, that's why I stood up as well, to see whether our programs already can fulfill those criteria, and how much does it take, and where do I look for the information, and whether do we have it or not. And of course, we did it. Of course, we ended up with some it depends, because, for example, we have one of our already up and running master programs in climate, environment, and energy, TRACY, as we call it, in Civis. It's a very complex program with 11 degree awarding universities, so it's already a complexity in itself, but it is a sort of our jewel of the crown program in the Alliance. And with 9 study tracks and so many degree combinations and sustainability as its core, it's interesting to actually look at that interpretation you were talking about, Ulrike, and how we actually see that. Because when we drafted, for example, the cooperation agreement for that particular program, which has set actually the template we have now for all our master and bachelor programs in Civis, it has been a couple of years just to make people understand why am I actually putting together people from admission office, QA office, financial officers, people who are working on curriculum design, together with academics and teachers and evaluators and supervisors and researchers. And how are they actually interacting and not limiting the innovation? Because this was very important to see how the academics and the researchers that are part of those programs are not actually limited by those constraints. They don't actually see that aiming towards a checklist is actually a limitation. And that leads to the challenging thought I was thinking about sharing with you, is the fact that, of course, simplification is key. It's important to look at it to the already existing processes to make it quite smooth, quite operational. But I take the thought, Alexandra, you shared, but is it actually sufficient? And I'm always asking myself, what do we actually want the European degree to be for? Because if it's blatantly speaking, I mean, if it's just a checklist of already existing things, then why are we here? We already have it. I mean, you've seen a couple of course, voices out there that say, well, all joint programs in Europe are European, right? Well, you can just say it's true. If we stick to that checklist, it's true. And then we can just go home or visit Venice, which is a beautiful city. So then, of course, the thought is, what do we, as members of European University Alliances and each of our universities, actually want the European degree to be more than that? Is it actually sufficient to think about a checklist of indicators around to QA mechanisms and processes which already attest a high level of quality? Is it sufficient to actually speak about documents and promises that are intrinsic in the process, or is it more about? Because if, for example, I give some examples from the criteria. So, of course, we have, Neringa, you mentioned, of course, the values, which has been raised upon as many times as challenging. But I would dare to say that it's challenging also from another perspective. And it's basically one of the criterion in the list that doesn't speak at all about the program. It speaks about the institutions. So then, of course, as an educationalist, I have the need to ask myself then why it is there, and it is there like that. Why isn't such a criterion with its subsequent indicators actually speak to me as an educationalist, as an academic, as a teacher, as a researcher, as a student at the end of the day? Why doesn't it speak to me about, for example, a value-inspired pedagogy? Why don't I actually think about how do we transpose values into teaching and learning practices in those joint programs, and how is that transposed into the learning experience of the students? Or, for example, if I go for inclusiveness or transclusivity, as in Civis we use this new approach that Professor Amita was mentioning yesterday, is it enough to talk about special needs? What about learning profiles? And how is that embedded in, again, the design of the learning experience? If we actually want the European degree to respond to the needs that, well, the political agenda says we have to. And that's about competitiveness, if I'm not wrong. It's about, well, skill development. It's about attracting talents. How is that connected? And the thought is that basically if we just aim for that oversimplification that I would say I'm afraid a bit of, talking about simplification, we are a bit very close to oversimplification. And I would dare to say that's a very, very, very thin line over there that maybe we should be cautious about. Because otherwise, is it actually enough to develop such a program that, well, speaks about those values if the journey and the experience of the students is not changed? I mean, how is that sufficient enough to attract talents from outside Europe, for example? Because that's one of the things that we say we want the European degree to be about. Is it enough? And I would dare to end this response, hoping that I responded in a way, of course, to this wonderful question, is also to the fact that is actually the European degree label, degree itself, whatever we'll aim for in the end, is it sufficient if it's not actually part of an ecosystem that we have to actually build all together? And I think the European University Alliances are the best way to do this ecosystem, in which we don't talk only about the degree programs themselves, which we already have, we are pushing them, the label will actually be able to prove this added value that we all want for, but then we actually have to build this ecosystem in which we talk about attracting, selecting, training, employing, and retaining those people that we want in Europe. And this is where the European degree label and the European degree programs, I would say hopefully soon, and not only the label, would actually remain. And this is the ecosystem that probably should allow us to think about this embeddedness in the already existing processes and the simplification. Simplification for itself or simplification for an added value. Maybe this is where the balance we have to think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you so much. So over the last days, or the last day more or less, and today we heard a lot about the European degree label, the added value, what it will be about, how it will be verified, etc. So now I'm very curious, and perhaps you as well, to hear the views and the perspective of the students. So not only about the verification process and where you would see the role of the students, but the view of the added value of the European degree label as a whole. I hope you agree that I asked this more general question to Tamara to respond to us from the student perspective. Please.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, everyone. Usually I consider myself unlucky because I have to wear the critical hat, but after all those speakers, I feel a bit unlucky because a lot of things have been said already, so I will try to polish my ideas. Of course, for students, it has already been said, but I have to underline again that the European degree label is not interesting if it is a logo, if it is a marketing tool or an extra line on a diploma. It's only relevant if it tangibly changes how it feels to study in that program. If quality is clearer, more coherent across countries, if mobility is properly supported, if it's better automatically recognized, and if participation is genuinely inclusive rather than reserved for a small, very privileged group. So, of course, the label can become a useful tool, but only under very strict conditions. So the question is not whether the label should exist or not at this point, but whether it is meaningful, fair, and worth the effort students and institutions are really asked to invest. And I was thinking to address three main aspects. Of course, the biggest expectation is to deliver specifically from my side how students can be involved in the criteria and in the verification. And for now, I would say that we cannot give too many general recommendations because we're still trying to see how it will entail in the next months, how the guide will look like in the final form, and also each of you, each alliance is unique in itself in how you involve students, what bodies you have. So there are not many correct general requests, I would say, from our side, but participation is important to understand that student participation is definitely not an optional feature, but a precondition for legitimate quality assurance. And if the European degree label is meant to be student-centered, as it says, in many, many places, then student involvement must be structurally embedded in both the criteria and the verification methodology. Of course, in general, it's very important that we're formally present in governance and quality assurance structures, talking about joint program boards, talking about all alliance-level bodies responsible for curriculum design, mobility schemes, admission rules, student support frameworks. But secondly, it's also important that our input when we're talking about this verification, should be independent. So from our side, it's very important to make sure that we will have a separate student statement or a separate student report written by the representatives from the consortium, the student representative from the consortium, where we share our views, our problems, our complaints, and in general, solutions for improvement. Thirdly, students must be involved also in the monitoring and in the follow-up process that we just talked about. How? We're not sure yet, because we're not sure how the monitoring will literally look like, but if the label will be renewed periodically, maybe it will be helpful to have like a report, like a "you said, we did" report that should become a standard practice, showing which measures we're taking to improve the program. And in general, inclusivity must be student verified. And when I'm talking about inclusivity, I'm talking about proof that working students, first generation students, carers, students with disabilities are present and are supported. And all this verification must include the perspective also of non-mobile students, because we're talking about joint masters mainly, that is usually the experience of a small mobile elite, whereas we have plenty of students that cannot move. So then we're talking about a very privileged report. This was the procedural aspect, but in terms of what has been also mentioned, I would like to call it the avoidance of administrative inflation, because this is how it feels like. From what I heard today and yesterday, the biggest risk is that the label becomes another bureaucratic process that is layered on top of accreditation, recognition, and QA, without really improving the learning documents and the learning experience. So what we just saw is more documents. We saw annexes, we saw agreements. Great. They're mainly irrelevant if we do not have them in practice, especially knowing that everyone uses AI to make them. So then what's the point of creating more annexes? Me, as a student reviewer, when I go in a review, it takes forever to find a document on a university website, because there are so many documents that we need to have. For what? Just to have the documents, just to tick the box? I don't know if it's really useful. So what I would challenge you to do is to ask yourselves if you really see a change in having this label. Because if you don't, then just don't get it, because really it makes no difference. So I would like also to say that it risks currently, looking at how it looks, it risks creating fragmentation rather than coherence, especially if it will be given to the joint programs only. As I just said, there are such a small percentage of the total student population. So that would be the second idea. And the third one, we like as student representatives to talk a lot about inclusivity. And it's very important to make sure that at this point we avoid creating a label for a few that is irrelevant for many. So students are already seeing headlines about this European degree. There is a real risk that it becomes a branding exercise that will benefit a very small number of programs, while the majority of students see no change at all. So, for example, we were explicitly told yesterday that participation in the label is voluntary. Okay, this may sound reassuring, but it also raises a fundamental concern. If participation is optional, limited, and resource-heavy, are we creating a European, so-called European flagship for a few hundred or a few thousand, where we have 20 million students in Europe? So right now, most European degree programs will be joint masters. In practice, that really means no bachelor access, little relevance for lifelong learners, marginal impact on mobility patterns, and in general, limited effect on social inclusion. So if so-called European education becomes synonymous with joint degree, then we completely exclude the majority of learners from the European project rather than bringing them closer to it. So if the ambition is truly European values, then maybe this space or other spaces are a good place to rethink together if what we have is whether that European elements should be restricted only to joint degrees. Alliances without joint degrees are left behind, what is happening, and whether the label supports transformation or simply just highlights what only a few can afford to do currently, because that's the financial reality of us as students. So as a conclusion, I would say that a successful European degree label in 10 years is not one with good branding. It's in general one where students don't really notice the label, but feel stronger rights, smoother recognition, and clearer information and real influence in shaping their education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will not say too much now because we only have 10 minutes left for, sorry? 20? Okay, then 20 minutes left to not endanger your coffee break for any additional questions from the audience. I already see hands everywhere. So the first one was over there. The second one is here in the back.
Hello, everybody. Juan from Ingenium. Yeah, is it okay, the sound? Perfect. Well, thank you so much because this has been one of the best panels I think I've ever attended, really, super interesting. There are so many things to react to. And first of all, I think you expose a very important trade-off that we should not avoid, which is what do we want out of simplification processes? And there, I think, I fully endorse these ideas on we should not confuse reducing administrative processes with losing the enriching element of dialogue that we have in QA. And honestly, even from experience, what I see in my university is that in quality labels processes, the participation of a panel, the dialogue with the academics is extremely enriching for everybody. So I think we should reflect on, do we want to take that out? Personally, I wouldn't, also because then what is the student engagement part? Where is this component of really getting ideas on how to improve the program? So in the next steps, in the policy lab, etc., I think it's super important that this is addressed. Like simplification should not mean a process that is just like checking 4 documents and that's it. We need to think about the component of improvement and we should not stop talking about this. And then on the, well, I think Tamara made really interesting points. But I think there are 2 dangers that she exposed. The first one is this idea that the European degree is the only policy tool out there, and that we should use the European degree to fix all the problems that we have in higher education. I fully disagree with that because in our alliances, we are doing many things, and joint programs are just one of them. We are working on flexible learning pathways, we are working on so many things to make our learning offer inclusive. So I don't think the question is whether every single joint program should be accessible to every single student. The question is, are we building learning offers that are inclusive to all types of students? Because otherwise what we risk is paralysis by analysis. We are going to spend countless hours trying to make every program adaptable to every single student, but this is not the case, right? Because education is diverse, people have different interests. So that should be the commitment. And what we need to build during programs is the flexibility to cater to different realities and needs. So yeah, I think it was important to highlight that. I would be really interested to hear more also, Tamara, on your perspective on that. Is this a general aspiration? Is this something that should happen with every joint program? When you talk about eliminating those barriers, how should we do it practically? Thank you.
Thank you. So who wants to react on this? Alexandro?
Thank you, and thank you, Juan, for raising both the comments and the question. I'd just like to make an add-on thought about this, because of course, start thinking a lot about, as I said, what's the European degree actually for? And I would dare to say that, of course, I agree with all the points about making it accessible for the students and making it something that the students can take value of. But I do share your thoughts. We have many other tools out there for many other things. And I would dare to also ask the following question. Are, for example, Erasmus Mundus open for everyone and accessible for everyone? No, they're not. They're not even open for the universities. If you actually look at them realistically, honestly, and we're here among friends and colleagues, they're not. And they're not about accessibilizing education. They're about making a very highly competitive market. That's it. And we are honest, and we know that. That's why we're doing them. So if, of course, we want at some point to transform higher education in Europe to make it accessible, meaningful, relevant, transformative for the students, well, we have to tempt universities, academics, and everyone involved to do that. And how do you tempt them? Well, raising the ambition and using the European degree as the hook in order to catch them into the transformative processes. But you cannot start by massifying the European degree. Because if you start by massification, there's no transformation at all. It's already there, so why do we bother? But rather, let's turn it the other way around. Let's start with, indeed, a privileged set of programs and initiatives that, well, roll out the spillover effect and transform the surroundings. And then in a couple of years, maybe in 10 years, we can talk about the massification of European degrees. But only if we acknowledge that, yes, truly, all the educational offer in the European higher education context is indeed worthy, if I would use this word, for this European degree. But I don't think we are there yet. And if we start with massifying it, we will actually not get there soon.
Thank you. And there's also a short remark from Alexander.
Yeah, well,
really short.
To say, yes, just to say I really agree with you, Juan Reon, definitely, and to reinforce it further, this is why I think it's so important to distinguish the procedural and substantive dimension. Overall, I think we have discussed this so much, this topic. This is where maybe I can see where Tamara is coming from. You know, we're discussing this as if it's the next Bologna process. I mean, you know, it's not. It can be much simpler than it sounds at first. But we need to distinguish these two things. We can really, I'm convinced, simplify it on the procedural level. This is what I try to say. Just integrate it in the external evaluations the way that it's already done with the labels. You can do that without sacrificing the ambitiousness of the substantive dimension and setting the bar higher in terms of the jointness, the student experience, etc., etc. So we can do both. But there is, of course, a certain trade-off. It's about how, let's say, easy it is to be compliant with the European degree label. And as with all sets of criteria, it can neither be too difficult nor too easy. You have to strike a good balance. And just one thought here, I think it's very important that these operational guidelines are not written somehow indefinitely. This is the first time that this will exist, the first time that this methodology will be implemented, and there's nothing more important than to already now determine how this will be updated and revised, because now we're just theorizing. Then, once we start implementing it, we need to have the feedback loops to see how it goes and to be smart about updating and revising the procedure.
Thank you. There was one. Yeah, Fernando.
Yeah, it's me, sorry. 3 quick ideas, but I will start by the most important one from my experience also. Thank you very much, Tamara, for raising this point. I fully agree with you. We cannot take any step towards creating a true European higher education area without taking steps in all fronts. And that means not only creating joint programs, but also creating the opportunities for the students to actually carry it out. And that's a responsibility that we should not throw away. It's a responsibility of the institutions, but it's a responsibility also of the policymakers, of the Commission and the national states. So that we should make sure that there is opportunities in terms of grants and support for this type of programs as well. On the procedural basis discussion, I have a question regarding the transition period, or how the already existing programs could actually get this label. The first question is this really a transition period, or programs that may not want to get the label at its accreditation phase, but then they change their mind and they still want to get the label, should be still have the opportunity to go to a QA agency and ask for the label at a later stage? And what is the implications in this process? And the main question, the elephant in the room, is there a site visit or there is not? I think the site visit is already there, because we are asking them to have a European approach, and there is a site visit to the European approach. So we are already working with verified documents, because it's not just the self-evaluation table, it's also the European approach evaluation report that a QA agency has produced. And obviously there can be an additional documentation needed, the same way a site visit could be a top-up if needed, but only if needed, not to create more burden and more resource-intense process. So I will suggest that for this kind of transition or additional, we only put the site visit as an additional thing if needed. In any case, I think all programs will try to integrate it into accreditation processes. That makes sense and is the less resource intensive. And a reflection also to Alexander Schussner from ECAR, just asking from your experience, is ECAR not basing its decision from somebody else's report that already carried out a site visit? So you are not doing site visits yourselves. You are also basing your decision making on somebody else's reports.
Yeah, if I can start from the end. Yes, indeed, that's how we do it. ECAR doesn't evaluate like we don't appoint the panels to go and evaluate the agencies. Agencies are free to choose, even their review coordinators, most often that is ENCA. We receive the reports and do the evaluation. Important difference there. The standards are known when they do it. If there was an European approach accreditation 3 years ago, 2 years ago, the European degree label criteria did not exist then yet. I mean, maybe they existed in a draft way, but the panels who did the accreditation then did not check them explicitly. Maybe we are lucky enough that we can infer it from the documentation, but now we're getting into what we talked about at a break yesterday. Maybe indeed we can use the accreditation report to infer the information, but it's not there. And that's the difference. I'm not saying we should not trust the reports of other bodies. We absolutely should. I think we have this basis of trust, is that when the people who have been drafting that report, they should have reflected on the things that we want to evaluate, which are the European degree criteria, which exist only now. Yeah? That's what bothers me there. That being said, but that leads to your question. My opinion is that in general, the site visit and the interviews with different stakeholders are absolutely irreplaceable part of any external evaluation. That being said, okay, you always have, sometimes roughness around the edges, and maybe it would be pragmatic to have some kind of a transition period, maybe indeed to say, okay, if the accreditation panel through the European approach has already, by good chance covered everything that is needed, maybe then you could give provisionally the label, but there has to be some kind of guarantee that once the next reaccreditation happens, that then it will really be properly included in the methodology. So it's a bit of a balancing game, but I mean, it's like that with all the things. Imagine when, now DSG are changing. We'll have a transition policy. Things do not always work perfectly in these boxes. I think it's fine. I think we can be pragmatic in finding these avenues. What Fernando was saying, we disagreed yesterday at the break, but at the end agreed. In a sense, yeah, maybe the site visit or the interviews with different stakeholders could be done like when needed for clarification or those type of things. But again, only exceptionally for a limited period of time until the first real external evaluation can happen. That at least would be my advice how to make the process reliable.
Yeah, and I also wanted to follow up on the other question because this also interests me a lot. Because there is a lot of joint programs already in place that perhaps did not go through European approach accreditation yet, but still want to now also apply for the European degree label. So was this taken into consideration already or discussed also in the policy lab, for example, how the procedures could look like for those programs who are already accredited, perhaps on a national level or via self-accrediting processes and not via the European approach, how the verification process could look like for those programs?
I guess you're asking me.
Yes.
So indeed, it was one of the, I think Jan Mael also mentioned it yesterday briefly, it was one of the main outcomes of the policy lab consultation we have had a couple of weeks ago, in the fact that we have indeed to be very clear on the processes that each of those programs or universities have to take in order to gain the label, either if we're speaking about self-accrediting universities, and of course talking about consortium only with such universities, and what happens if it's a mixed consortium between self-accrediting universities and, well, universities that don't have this role and need an external accreditation at program level. But also when we speak about European approach process or not, even though there's of course this debate whether, well, how do you actually follow the European approach standards through other processes, and this has to be indeed properly checked if it's not through the European approach process. So this is part of the revision of the guidelines that we are doing together with the colleagues in the advisory board, trying, of course, to take the feedback from the member states on these processes and make it much clearer. Also, Alexander, you mentioned, of course, also the clustering of those indicators that are already checked through the quality processes. So there will be a couple of changes there in a way to make it simpler and much clearer for everyone on the processes. But again, this will also be sent back to the policy lab to see how it fits into their understanding.
Thank you. And also Tamara, she wanted to react to the comment.
Yeah, so just to build up on what has been said already, I don't know if you, Alexander, someone said that it should go beyond European approach, and I think the question is how does it go beyond European approach at this point, because it's not that obvious to me at least, and maybe the answer to all the questions is also to go more towards quality enhancement and not necessarily compliance, because currently I feel like the discussion is going a lot around compliance and a lot of compliance burdens, but maybe if we look towards quality enhancement and really learning mobility improvement, then the narrative might change a little, it might be more relaxed in this direction.
Thank you, and there is another question over here.
Thank you. Ksenia Widmar-Horvat, University of Ljubljana and EUTOPIA Alliance. I would like to simplify a little bit the whole narrative. In my recollection, over a year ago, we started receiving invitations to various panels on European diploma, European degree. So we thought it was the new narrative that's coming up. And then all of a sudden this spring we got the document on the label, European diploma label, degree label. So I think that we are sort of confusing what is this label. I don't think it's a brand. I think it's a tool. We are in the process of identifying, in my understanding, I may be wrong, identifying the obstacles that would lead toward the European degree after 2028. So we have 2.5 years to identify the obstacles. So in this sense, it makes sense to me that we simplify the procedures to get the label in order to really identify the obstacles and focus on them in depth. So, and then all the added value that will come after 2028 will have to be concerned with inclusion, with student experience. I think these are the conditions that need to be fulfilled in order to get the European diploma. So I think it's very important that we are clear what are we doing here, what is our mission, our task. I think really identifying the obstacles. And it's not a brand. As alliances, we are already struggling to brand ourselves as alliances. So now we have the European label there as well. We don't want to see inflation of labels. I'm happy that there are so many labels around, but what's the value of that many labels? So again, I think that we really need to separate the processes of administrative obstacles, identity problems. The universities want to lose their identities and their brands, and the European values that we want to integrate into the European higher education ecosystem, and that's a mission that has much longer history, as Rumita yesterday said, and also much longer future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very important comment. I fully support what you say. I mean, the narrative changed a little bit from becoming a real qualification and talking about the program as such, to talking now about something that is put on a diploma, and we should get back to the core of the thing. So we have some minutes left for the panelists to react on this comment, and then I would close the session.
Just a practical reaction from the experience of our alliance in this moment, linking it with the obstacles, because of course I think all the pilot projects did a lot of analysis of the obstacles and mappings, and it will be done also in the connection with the work in the policy lab. But the question is sometimes what are actually the obstacles Because if we look only at, for example, regulatory obstacles in different member states, well, let's be fair. I mean, that's quite an easy exercise to do. But at least in our experience in Civis, it's not actually about that. Because, for example, when we had discussions in another of our programs about the financial model, I've had colleagues from different offices in the universities coming to meetings and saying, well, we cannot do that, this and that. So, of course, my first reaction was, okay, give me the reference where it actually says you can't. So they couldn't give me that reference because it doesn't exist. The law doesn't say absolutely nothing about that. But there is an automatism of people, and it's a conservative automatism, that they come and say we can't do this and that. And sometimes this is presented as an obstacle, but the obstacle is not there. The obstacle is the culture of the institution, the willingness or unwillingness of some to actually do something, and of course the way people understand why are they there. And that's why I think it's also where the ambition can actually change those obstacles. Because it's not, again, it's not only about the law, it's about the people who are trying to make those things happen.
A very last short question, okay, because you know we are now nearly ready to have our first coffee, so but please.
I'm not against the coffee. Just a very quick reaction to Tamara's intervention, very interesting one, to have our students together with us. Looking back to the Bologna, do you remember the black book of the Bologna process? The students has reacted at the time. We should be in permanent contact and communication to our students, because it's so important to know in which way they would like to imagine the academic journey. And one important point for reflection in the future is not only to the last part of this journey, which is the exit, the certification, the label, the administrative perspective. We need to look on the learning experiences of our students. If you are designing a program which is motivating the students, creating emotional trust and participation according to their needs, more flexible, modularized, based on small micro-credentials, based on BIPs. Alexander, it's important to mention that we integrated some BIPs experiences in the master program. That's fantastic. Flexibility and orienting to the learning experiences of our students as a journey will be perhaps a modality to save something and not looking to the end of the process, which is just certification. Students expecting from our trust and participations together in all learning experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with those final words, I would like now to conclude and thank you very much for your valuable contributions. And yeah, let's have a coffee now.
Thank you, everyone. So we will meet again here in 20 minutes, so at 11:05 maximum here for the next plenary session. Thank you. Okay, everyone. I hope you had a nice break and a stroll in the fresh air. So thank you again for our panel three speakers and moderator for guiding us this morning through the very practical and challenging question of how to evaluate and verify the European degree label criteria. We will now turn to a session that brings all of this to life. And in this poster session, 8 alliances and alliance representatives will present their contributions, which will be very diverse because some of them have prepared posters and presentation in which they present their program and how they're aligned with the criteria. Some of them will present what they've learned through accreditation processes. Some of them will present and propose new governance models, and others have also prepared to present alternative pathways to join programs. So each presentation will last 6 to 7 minutes, and we'll hold a collective Q&A at the end. Keep your questions, and you'll ask them in the end of the session. So I'll now call to the floor the first presenter, Michael Ibert. Again, sorry, French pronunciation for the names. From EUDRES, E3EUDRES, a bit challenging, the name of the alliance. Michael is the academic coordinator in the alliance and also in the joint master's program in extended reality, and he's also a senior researcher in sound and music computing at the Institute of Creative Media Technologies at St. Polten University of Applied Sciences. So Michael, if you will join us, thank you. And the posters are also all displayed in the lobby, below the lunch area, right? So you'll have time to actually roam the room as well and look at them more during the lunchtime.
On yet, so now I should be audible. Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present our program here and also describe what the challenges we had to face and what we fulfill concerning the criteria or not. Just one remark to how to pronounce our alliance. We had a major, let's say, festival or show last week in St. Pölten with a professional moderator, and he said it that way, either you dress or you go naked. So you really pronounce it as you dress. And I thought that was a good way to remember it somehow. Okay, I would like to talk about GRACE, which is also a very complicated name if you really pronounce it correctly. GRACE stands for Gamified Reality Applications for Real-World Challenges and Experiences. We realized this is a little bit too long to promote it, so we now call it only Master in Applied XR, and this says very much about the topic it covers. So it's about gamification on the one side, applied to XR methodology and in specific application fields like health, education, or manufacturing, so maintenance applications for or training or physical therapy, as you see here, applications are the typical ways we want to implement this program. Or yes, I mean we already completed the accreditation here, which was a major enterprise. Because, yes, we follow the European approach, but in Austria, as a University of Applied Sciences, in order to start an application process, even if you have design measure funding, so we had the money, we could not start the application because you need funded study places. So, I mean, we needed to find a way really to apply for study places, and we finally also received them, so we could start this process in, let's say, collaboration with the NVEO in the Netherlands. That's the other partner, and the third partner was in Latvia, who already have a master in this field, and also they renewed their application, or had just renewed their application for the whole, let's say, scientific field for 5 years, but still they would not accept this accreditation for our program, so we had to do an additional licensing process on short notice because we did not accept this. So, but finally, I have to say everybody was very supportive, all the agencies we worked with, and finally we received the accreditation after 14 months, so that was a long period of time. So yes, I mean, so this event is about the criteria and in how far programs who already exist fulfill these criteria, and of course, and we saw some other examples this morning already, we also checked the different criteria versus what we have to offer. And saying that, I mean, if you do an accreditation following the European approach, and also if you design a program as this one is for Erasmus Mundus, we haven't received it yet, but we are positive that we will sooner or later at least, you more or less fulfill most of the criteria to full extent. So my question, or the point I want to make now is somehow, I mean, we have all these check marks now, and I think there are several programs here who really have no problem fulfilling all the criteria and to a certain extent. But what we have not talked about, and I think this is also very important, is the content really. So what do these criteria mean in the sense of the European idea, the European spirit? Where do we want to go? And what does it mean also for the design of our study program? So from my point of view, it's not enough just to set a check mark. But I mean, it should be something, at least for several of the points here in the criteria list, it should be something really which should be made very visible somehow, because I mean, it brings our society and Europe forward in a way. And I think, I mean, having a topic in the field of gamification and so a playground which is interdisciplinary by itself, because I mean a game itself is nothing, especially if you do games with a purpose, as gamification can be called. You always have to something you have to deal with and to implement. So. Yes, so we follow here this project-based approach. So there will be challenges from the industry, from mentors. We have 26 mentors at the moment on board with real-world projects here, and students can fulfill or have the task to fulfill these projects and these challenges within their studies. So that could be very long projects here, lasting 4 semesters or 3.5 semesters. But also we have space for or concepts for shorter projects. But the overall idea is that students are in permanent contact to the industry, to our partners, in order to do relevant work. So I mean, both sides learn from this. So the industry benefits because they can train the students in a direction they need them to have them, and of course students because they already are in the working field, they are in the market, they have their networks, and in this case we have 3 countries involved, so they have 3 networks really for future employment. So this is the basic idea behind it, and I think I have to watch my time slowly. I see this. Yes, so saying this, we have this so-called path to reality. That means we pick students up in an in vitro situation at the beginning of their studies, and they will end up really implementing their projects into the industry fields. And there's always questions in relationship to the mobility. So we have a fixed route here as well. So students will start in St. Pölten and then move to Enschede, which is in the Netherlands, at Saxon University, and then move to Latvia in the 3rd semester. At the 4th semester, it really depends where they do their thesis and their final project implementation. Implementation. And of course, I mean, we have the problem. I mean, the project should be more than, in an ideal case, more than 1 semester. So how to deal with this mobility? Because students have to move, apparently, but the companies won't move they are in. And I have to say that we are very lucky here because many of the companies we are working with have not seen several of their employees ever in real time or in real life, because they're working abroad and in, let's say, mobile office situations. So some are in Australia, some are in the US and wherever. And so also this topic solves many issues we normally would face with this mobility thing when we try to combine external partners with the demanded or required mobility, especially for Mundus programs. So that's one way to deal with this, and I think I should stop here. I would have many things to say, but this should just be an example how to deal with this situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So I will now call our second speaker, who is Dr. Ilka Kurek, who holds a PhD in evolutionary biology and behavioral ecology. And Ilka is a researcher and director at the University of Siegen, and she joined the Athena Alliance team, where she coordinates joint research and educational activities. And since 2024, she has also served as the administrative coordinator of the Erasmus Mundus joint program called Eminent. Of course, please do.
Hello? Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so I will stand up. That's easier for me to show you the poster. So thank you very much for the introduction. So yeah, we are also using this poster session to give you one example on how European University Alliances can facilitate the development of joint programs, hopefully with the European degree label at a later stage. So our example here shows the program Eminent, which is our Erasmus Mundus program that has been developed within the framework of our Alliance Athena. So we have 4 Athena partners that are participating in this Mundus plus 1 external partner. And the program was launched in 2023 and accredited following the European approach, and we are also awarding a joint degree. And basically what we want to show here on the left side with this tree is that the development of Eminent is strongly rooted in the strong collaboration and the enabling environment that we had within Athena already when we started to develop this program, which means there was a collaboration not only between the academics that are responsible for the curriculum, but also between the administrative offices like legal department, international offices, campus management. So these people already knew each other, and this really facilitated for us the development of things like joint examination regulations, joint student support services, creating a joint degree certificate. So I think the word trust is very important here. Like, since we had this trust, which builds the stem of our tree, this really made many processes more easy for us. And when I read about the criteria for the European degree label for the first time, I noticed that we already fulfill most of these criteria, as it has discussed before in this round several times. This is probably something we have in common with other joint programs, especially if they were accredited using the European approach. So in the middle column here, we are just showing you some examples on how we address these criteria in our program. For instance, I mean, this is now also a bit small, regarding joint governance. We have established 4 internal committees that all include members of each partner university. So we have a joint admission committee, we have a joint examination committee, we have a so-called Eminent Global Team, which is a committee of administrative staff, mainly from our international offices, who is responsible for things like joint student support services, but also dissemination of our program. And then we have the steering committee, which is the committee in the very top, which is the main decision-making body, and this consists of the 5 academic coordinators of the program, and below this little box, that's basically me, that's the administrative coordinator. So my role here is to be the interface between all these committees and trying to pull the strings together. And the purple committee is our external committee, the observatory panel. So this is constituted of members from industry or from other partner universities that give feedback on our program. So we do have the joint governance. We are also trying to involve students as much as possible. Honestly, I think this is something where we still could do more. So we do have 2 students representatives in our examination committee. We organize regular feedback rounds with our students at each partner site. And we are currently in the process of developing the eminent student and alumni club in order to create a strong network between our current and former students. The curriculum is multidisciplinary and flexible. This is what you can see at the lower part right here in our mobility scheme. So all the students start during the first year in the same 2 partner universities. So they are first in Greece, then they go to Germany, and then in the 3rd semester they get to choose one of 5 specialization tracks depending on their thematic interest. And here each partner offers one of these specialization tracks. So the group basically splits up in the 2nd year. And we have mandatory laboratory courses, especially during this 3rd semester, where students are strongly involved in ongoing research at our different partner sites. So I will not go into detail regarding the contents. It's an electrical engineering program, but basically we have robotics in there, we have IoT in there, we have biosensors in there, data processing and different kinds of things. So students get to choose really what they want to do. We also promote co-supervision, so during the 4th semester students get to choose again where they would like to conduct their master thesis, and recommend or try to realize that students have one supervisor of 2 different partner universities, or even one supervisor from a university and a second one from industry. So yeah, this is just an example on some aspects. As I said before, I think of course, in all programs, there's room for improvement. There are maybe some things we need to recheck and that we can improve, but generally I see that we already cover many of these criteria here. And within our alliance, we see Eminent, as this is our first joint degree program, as a blueprint for the development of more joint programs. I mean, we discussed it in our breakout session yesterday. The first one is always the most difficult one, I think, and now that we have one, I hope it will be more easy for the next ones that we have in the pipeline. And generally, I think since all our alliances, we all do have this trust and enabling environment. We all have established this. And so I think, or I'm quite hopeful that we can all contribute through this trusting environment that we all have, through clear guidelines, through the exchange between the alliances as we are doing it right here. We can all contribute to helping joint European programs to grow beyond the current status of being rather niche products into hopefully becoming more visible and recognized formats in the future that are also more recognized on the labor market and even beyond Europe. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilke. So I will now welcome our next presenter, who's Dr. Mariana Mäkelä, principal lecturer at Agahilia University of Applied Sciences in Finland, and who's the co-chair of the Ulysseus Committee for Joint Programs. She has more than 30 years of experience in internationalization of education and has played a pioneering role in Finnish work-integrated higher education and in early European approach accreditations. So please take the floor, Mariana.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you very much for the invitation and the introduction. So, as you can see, my poster, or our poster from Ulysseus, is very simple and straightforward. Maybe also interpreting things in a Finnish way, because also experiences were called for in the call for posters. So I wanted to bring in some words of encouragement for colleagues here, because I've been talking with many of you, and the commitment that we have engaged with in Ulysses seems to be, I don't know if it's exceptional, but at least to me as being part of it, seems quite ambitious. So we, Haaga-Helia, my institution, is coordinating the work package number 3 in Ulysses, which consists of, goes with the title Human Capital Development. And we have the commitment of creating, co-creating 8 new joint master programs, 8 double masters and 8 double bachelors. And then after the joint programs, joint masters, there will be consecutive PhD pathways and co-tutels. So right now we are in the middle of the second funding period, and we, I don't know if you see in the red rounds there, the names of the programs that we have co-created so far. So my main message today would be to highlight some of the enabling factors that have been very helpful for us in the Alliance and also in the consortia co-creating these programs. So if we start from the first round at the left, so take my paper, so Smart Cities, which was accredited with the European approach in 2023, was the first one. As I would like to align also with what Ilke just said, that the first one is the most challenging one. So it was created by our coordinator, University of Seville, and there has been a lot of support to all the Alliance members ever since, with the documentation and all the experience that have been gathered and shared in the Alliance. And the next one is the one that I'm coordinating myself, being the administrative coordinator, and it's on artificial intelligence for business transformation. And we just recently got the reconfirmation of the accreditation that was awarded last year by the Aquas agency. And also all the programs that have been accredited have undergone the process in different agencies, so that is also something that has been a very useful experience, so that we can really share and compare the processes. And then the next ones are coordinated by our partner in Austria, SMILE on sustainable biosciences, and then M4TEM on sustainable tourism. And those received the accreditation last spring. And then there are 2 more in the pipeline coming up, one on digitalization by our Slovak partner, and another one on cultural heritage by our Italian university partner. So those are coming up shortly, and also entering the European approach process. And then we have 2 Erasmus Mundus joint programs that have been accredited with a national accreditation system in France. And then to the enablers. So I think that it's very important to build on the experiences of the other partners. So really sharing the process, also the obstacles and the tricky parts and the, how do I say, muddled waters in between that happen for all of us every now and then. So that is something that I really appreciate in our Alliance. So it is possible to talk about things, and please keep on talking. It's already been said here that it's very important to keep on communicating. We have shared experiences on curriculum development, and also the tricky, how do I say, context of securing finances. Sorry, I have wrong glasses, so I don't see everything on my own paper, and not on the slide either. So yes, sharing experiences and providing feedback. So it's very important to talk about everything. So the second enabler has been the body which is called the Committee for Joint Programs in Ulysses, that I'm co-chairing with my colleague from Innsbruck. So it's really the core team that makes things happen, and it's kind of the turning point for all the exchanges, and we try to encourage partners and also engage them in the in the work that they conduct in their own institutions. And also we try to help with all the documentation that has been compiled for the European approach process. And trying to support and facilitate things that we would all go towards the European label criteria and fulfill them in the near future. And the third one is probably one of the most important ones, and it's finding the right people to the curriculum development groups and to the administrative groups. And here I would like to emphasize, well, which is my own experience, that, and shared by many colleagues, that it's not the position of the person that would be important to be assigned for a certain task, but it's the commitment, the motivation, and also the time management skills, because we are dealing with things that need to be done in a very tight timeline. And do I have some more minutes to go? Yeah. One more, okay. So my own time management, not the best. So there needs to be endorsement, and that's number 4. So that can be shown in many ways, but endorsement for the faculties and all people who are involved and from the management, because otherwise it's not going to be very easy. And as I already said, there is a tremendous support from the alliance structure if we really can make use of it and maintain an open communication environment. And we have created, just like Ilke said, groups for student administration, transfer of data, pedagogical development, language policy, and then the Committee for Joint Programs. And then there are innovation hubs that are connected to all these forthcoming programs. I already said or emphasized the communication and online co-creation and using all the tools possible to really make it possible for people to work asynchronously on tasks that are scheduled with a very tight time frame. And then resilience has been already mentioned here, so I'd also like to say that resilience also comes with a process. So if you trust your colleagues and you trust in the process, so you become more resilient, and it will be possible to make all this happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. This is impressive, lots of different programs from on the lines. So I will now welcome Neringa, that we've heard from this morning from the EU Connexus Alliance. And I will not say more. Okay. Microphone? Okay. This is a standing panel.
Good morning. Still morning in Spain. So I was presenting the compliance to the criteria of Joint Master of Marine Biotechnology that I'm honored to talk so much today because the content development, all the cooperation agreements between the teachers, it's the merit of my colleagues, not mine. I just helped to put all the agreements that they've made in the consortium agreement. Okay, that's my merit, but everything has started with the previous cooperation of several research groups, bottom-up initiative, very much supported by top-down support in making this program work and implement it. So I will not go through the partners, but we have 6 different countries during the process. Half of them did not recognize automatically European approach, so it was a challenge. We started the processes without knowing that we will finish them. The partners committed, even France and some others who did not have automatic recognition, committed to go for it because we wanted some agreements to work on top of our institutional, or breaking our institutional regulations, let's say. What I want to tell more today is one model that shows how this program contributes to pedagogical innovation, collaboration, innovation, transversal skills of the students, employability, cooperation with ecosystem, students, alumni, graduate tracking, and in majority part response to the European dimension criteria. So the colleagues, academic colleagues of mine, came up with one model of, as they called, academic research integration, where they wanted to integrate all the theoretical part the students were following during the first semester, the first 2 semesters in the program, with research and with challenge, problem-based approaches, what is happening in ecosystem outside the university. Talking about this academic research integration, the program, I have to mention that the program has the first year mobility in 2 different universities, and for the 3rd semester, the students are choosing the track. But the students are not going to the track leader university out of 6, but additionally they're choosing academic research integration project or research project, and physically they are moving to that laboratory that is coordinating that project. So physically at university, for example, Agricultural University of Athens, there are students from different study tracks, and they work on the same research project together. With this, we foster interdisciplinary approach very much. Students are studying 16 ECTS, which makes 3 additional courses in hybrid mode with their colleagues from the tracks. So when they are working on research project, they are working with their mates from different disciplines, but through hybrid classes of other courses, they are consulting with similar profile students on what they are doing in their own research projects and getting their inputs and bringing back. Yesterday we were talking a lot about inclusiveness and how joint program is isolated for those students. So with this, we also open up this possibility of different experiences, cultural backgrounds, educational backgrounds, and knowledge to the students of that hosting university, because on that research projects, it's not only joint master's programs students who are working, but also local university, home university students, let's say. I don't like home university joint program, but what to do? So this also expands beyond the joint program. Later on, the projects that they've been working on, they are presented to the society, to the stakeholders, because we organize every year Blue Innovation Days, changing the countries and bringing industry to these events, and the students are presenting what they've been doing together. Worth to mention that also research projects, they are developed with typically regional and international ecosystem partners. So again, those students immediately collaborate with the industry as well. And recently launched EU Connexus Alumni Network helps us to track how their careers are going on. From the other side, it's worth to mention that through this academic research integration, there is also collaboration between the researchers from different universities that contributes to more research visibility, more research results, and motivates the staff to be in this program. So with this, I will finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neringa. Our next speaker is Christina Bocute from Kaunas University of Technology, representing the ECIU University, and she works on the ECIU's flexible learning pathways and support the implementation of the innovative, challenge-based and flexible transnational learning formats. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. So this is not my poster. Okay. So yes, so these 2 days we were talking about European degree label, and when we discuss this label, usually we say and we talk about joint degree programs. And Jan Mael yesterday also mentioned that we are not discussing anything else except joint degree program. Yet we would like to bring a new perspective or a new approach about the joint degree programs and how we can put this European degree label into action without or beyond the joint degree programs. So we believe that there is another approach which could be used for having the European degree label, and which would also give students students a more freedom to choose their own learning pathways. So what we are representing is, the core idea is very simple. We have instead of creating one single fixed joint degree program, we let students to build their learning journeys across our university alliance. And we combine challenge-based learning modules with the micro-modules from different universities. And that's how we create personalized pathways while we ensure quality through mutual agreements. So if students earn credits at a partner university, we recognize these learning outcomes automatically, and that's how students get their credentials stored in their digital passes. So in order to tick the European degree label criteria, we also quite good at that. For example, for student-centered focus, the learners, they design their own paths, combining modules based on their interest and career goals, so reaching this quite high level of student agency. For the interdisciplinarity, also our challenge-based learning approach, it is naturally interdisciplinary, and students work in interdisciplinary multinational teams by solving real-world problems. For example, at our Kaunas University of Technology so far, the last challenge what the students were doing, they were discussing how to why do we fall for frosted lies and so on. So also, of course, we have a lot of sustainability challenges as well. For mobility and internationality, the learning opportunities we combine, and we can have all physical, virtual mobility, blended mobility. So it depends on the teachers' instructional design and how they do that. Also, of course, it's flexible because students choose from challenges and micro modules across all the alliances, yeah, it involves stakeholders as well. So going to from theory to the practice, so how do we do that at KTU? We have this flexible learning pathways integrated for 10 study programs, bachelor level and in master level as well. And we have minimum 18 ECTS credits allocated. Students can have more than 18 ECTS, but the minimum is that one. And for example, for bachelor level, students start quite slowly. We start from the 3rd or 5th semester, depending on the study program, and they start with mini local challenge within a study module. in the first semester of very flexible learning pathway implementation. Later, in the second semester of the implementation, we go to the KTU challenge, and of course, along that way, we choose the micro modules which are suitable for them. And for the third semester, we choose only from the different alliance universities, the challenges from the different alliance universities. Similar process goes with master level. For master level, we start from the first semester of their studies and go through 3 semesters along. So for master level, we can choose whether we go we have this MA Plus program, which allows students to choose whether we want to deepen their field expertise, so we can go to the field expertise. And another one pathway is the interdisciplinarity, where we are introduced in this flexible learning pathways model. So we also go through local challenge, KTU challenge, and external ECU challenge over the semesters, along combining with the micro modules. So in general, what we want to say that sometimes traditional joint programs will lack flexibility for diverse students' needs, and the flexible learning pathways, we can provide that framework without being rigid, and the European degree label could encompass diverse models beyond the joint programs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cristina. So next we will hear from Dr. Javier Avila, Director of the European Alliance Strategy at the University of Cordoba. He holds a PhD in English as a foreign language and also a senior lecturer in language acquisition and bilingual education, and is an educational advisor in international projects and contributes to teacher training in Spain.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you for my panel colleagues. I need to be standing because they are taking a picture for our PR group. That's the reason. I'm sitting here. I don't know if we are now following with the food allegory, if we are more on a big sandwich or a deconstructor, lasagna, probably. And I'm here to introduce you to Invest and what we've been doing in the last number of years. I need to have a very short diachronic view on this, just to explain how we got into what we're presenting to the European degree and to the level as well, and how we have been doing. The challenges in these days have been probably the same as we have been sharing everybody here. Let me start. I didn't understand very well the structure of the posters, so I tried to have a general picture, and then it is going to be impossible here. It would be I'm going to be available at lunchtime for this. But this Invest is what you can see in the map with 7 partners working together on the first phase. This is the diachronic view. We weren't able to. We were not on that phase. We got in 23, but our partners didn't manage to get the masters and the bachelor degrees that they intended to in the original call. So the compromise solution was that was very interesting, by the way. They came out with 7 specializations, that each one in each different country, so students could go for a specialization in every single country. Those specializations have been kept in this second phase, and now some of them have also been integrated into the new degrees. So that's what we call from mobility rich. That was on the first phase. We were focusing on having mobility that was implying the 7 partners, and now we have designed the degrees conjointly. And then I'm not very good at drawing diagrams, so I asked someone to create the diagram there. And it was an engineer, so it's a very ugly one. So I realized later that, so I tried to do it with the IA, but then it would look like a game racer. So I stick to the engineer one. And, well, basically, I'm open for discussion on this, but the diagram intended to communicate that the different stakeholders and the different participants in the whole process are involved. We were only told by project officer, hey, you don't have the students in the Rectors Assembly. Well, they are now sitting in the Rectors Assembly. So instead of the general structure, I took the structure of just a bachelor degree, where the decisions are taken first at the alliance with the Rectors Assembly, the steering committee, and then the academic board that is providing 2 people from the academic board into the academic board of the bachelor degrees. And then here it opens into different elements. So it's including students, it's including the stakeholders, it's including the local coordinator for the different places. We only have a distinction, that is the voting rights in the committee for the issue providers versus the mobility partners that are participating. And so from what I've been listening to this today, I think we are on the right path. It was very crazy how the way we got into the alliance and the way we had to face the assignment of getting in charge of all the degrees. But finally, we have 3 ones ready for accreditation now, and 6 masters that are being connected into the invest landscape. And it's particularly interesting, for me at least, when we get to the 3rd point, this is designing learning around learners. Apart from the challenge and the research approach, based approaches that are behind the whole pedagogy, there are a number of things that we can get through that I think are interesting. I don't know if everybody's using them, but then I cannot read properly. Let me get my glasses. Sorry about this. So now I cannot see you. So, well, let me start. The micro-credentials are inserted, they're imbricated in the whole process. So we have developed a number of micro-credentials, and some of them are serving the master's degrees, some of them are serving the bachelor degrees, and then they are also staying on their own. Some of these micro-credentials will be also taught into the living labs. The living labs is a very, very important constituent part of the whole process in MBES, because it's developing the territory, the sustainable development of the territory. So the living labs are part of the bachelor degrees, the masters, and the PhD. So these are the places where the students, the academics, the researchers are gathering the data and helping the stakeholders, the companies, and the territory to improve the situation that they have in the rural areas, right? So we also have an entrepreneurship program that is imbricated also in the living labs and in the degrees. And now let me go to the 4th part. But we've been talking so much about quality assurance that I think we can forget about this part, just because Marichelle is running out of time, that is coming after me, just for respect to that. But it's just applying a basic research procedure to quality assurance, where you are reviewing all the time what you're doing. Common sense, from what I understand. It is interesting, yes, the final point, that is what we call seamless mobility. Not only us, but many people in Europe is calling that. We are supporting the students to have at least 1 year mobility. We are, yes, managing this structure in the different degrees. At least 1 term is mandatory, but then the students sometimes, according to the profiles and according to inclusiveness and the necessities and of the population, sometimes they can choose 1 track that is higher mobility, or they can choose a more home track, having at least 1 term abroad. And that's something that we are particularly happy about, the way it is working. We are piloting in 26. We are piloting, the first one is starting fall 26, and then the 3 first ones are going to be credited, hopefully, we keep fingers crossed, and fully working, giving way to the masters. There are 6 in the pipeline to be continuing with the project. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Our seventh presenter is Professor Antonella Forlino, full professor of biochemistry at the University of Pavia, and she coordinates the EC2U Joint Master Task Force.
Okay, so here I am. Just briefly, we in our alliance, we already have accredited 3 joint master. This happened at the really beginning of the program, meaning that, well, in 2019, a brief personal introduction, I was a nominated prorector for internationalization, and the first thing that I had to decide was, do we want to reapply for the project of the European Alliance that was not granted in the first round? I didn't know what the European Alliance were and what joint program really means. So, well, I spent a couple of months trying to dig on all the documents, and then I realized, wow, yes, we have to. So, but then what I did not realize was that when I started to read what was proposed and rejected, so we have to rearrange, was that the center part, one of the center part of the alliance was to create 3 joint programs from scratch. So we have 3 work packages, one for each joint program, one in the Faculty of Medicine, Lifelong and Well-being and Healthy Aging, one in the Faculty of Language, European Languages, Culture and Society in Contact, and the third one in engineering area, Sustainable City and Communities. And what we wanted to do was to pilot different strategy to create a joint program. So in the first one, we had like a kind of Lego module, meaning that the student could choose to move in different semesters, building up their personal learning outcome. In the second one, there was a free chart selection, so the student can move to different universities, but they could choose within each university and each semester which course they want to follow. And the third one was a more structural one with students moving one semester for each semester, we're going to different university. And we had to build up a way to find a kind of agreement among all the university to be the accreditation process possible. Unfortunately, none of the countries were willing to use the European approach. So we went for national accreditation, which was a challenging experience. And I was so lucky to coordinate the master task force that was actually deeply involved in solving all the problem, putting together academic, administrative from different areas. So honestly, our joint program were designed before thinking about the European degree label or European degree. So what we did, and what I'd like to present today, is that overall, the joint program per se are basically the, well, not automatic, but very close to the criteria that were released later on for the European degree label, and hopefully soon the European degree. So I'm not going to move on all the criteria. We just label, and it was really useful exercise for ourselves. In green, the criteria that we satisfy. In orange, the criteria that we satisfy, like some percentage, and in red, the one that we don't. So definitely we have a minimum of 3 up to 5, and now hopefully up to 7 universities that in the reaccreditation will be involved in the master. Regarding the transnational joint degree delivery, unfortunately we are still stuck with multiple degree, meaning that we still have the issue to have a single diploma. The main obstacle were a few countries at that time, but now this issue in those countries, thanks to our work and the alliance work, are solved. So in the reaccreditation, we really hope, I don't know how, with amendment or something, to be able to accomplish these criteria as well. Regarding the involvement of the students, they are well involved in the alliance. We did not really involve directly during the creation of the program, something that we are doing for the next one. So, but they are really involved in feedback, and now we are creating the alumni group. So somehow, but it's not really a green light in my opinion. The green light is if we really involve students from the very beginning, something that we are doing now for the new master, but not for those one. And then another thing that we did not thought about was a graduate tracking system, which is, as you know, is very complicated. I mean, it's really easy to have tools, software whatsoever, survey to follow up where our graduate students are going, what they are doing, and but then it's always up to them to answer. So we definitely have now in pipeline a tool to accomplish these criteria, but personally, it's always a matter of student answers. So I don't know if really should be included as in the criteria. I know that we cannot change. We can bypass that. I'm not sure about the really output. And then the other couple of things that I want to mention, and I'm really proud because they really are kind of a good practice that really accomplish the criteria that have been released. Talking about labor market relevance, we started from the beginning to involve industry partner and hospitals, depending on the area of the master, in the building up of the program. So that actually was a good practice for us, and it was really useful because we wanted to create a master, not duplicating other things, and based on really what the labor market was asking. I know that we need to have academic freedom, but we live in our world, so we need to provide tools for our students to be employed. And then in terms of transnational campus access to services, what we already set up before the criteria was to create an app that was a friendly way for the students to be able to move, find the proper way to find the library, all the services, the cafeteria, but all the different services that they need in the different university. And last thing, even if not all partners university are accredited in the master, all of them offer mobility opportunities, so they can accept our student in Erasmus. And in this way, we could include all of them in our consortium agreement, making all the alliance partners involved in our study. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we will close with Meritxell Chavez, who's the SecGen for CharmEU that she has led since 2019, and who brings great experience in academic management, in quality assurance, in strategic planning, in international relations, and accreditation.
So thank you very much for the selection of the poster and for having the opportunity. I expected to present by the poster, no? And I have a gadget here to stick in the poster. But don't worry, I am not going to stick it in the screen. Trying to say which parts needs more energy and which less, okay? Anyway, I can be talking about this for an hour or so. We are recruiting the 6th edition of the master. We started in 2021. The 4 first editions with 5 partners, now we are 9. So we went through European approach twice, challenging. The first one was not in Europe, the European approach in Spain was not possible, so we had to go to national one. But, sorry, I want to emphasize something that is not in the criteria, but is important, is the transformative meaning of the European degree, at least for us. So this master for us was a flagship of transformation that was meaningful for the students, but is also affecting at home to programs that are not even joined, okay? So, and this was used as a case to change two legislations, the Hungarian one and the Spanish one. So it also transformed at the national level. We have organized these criteria. We are preparing to do more. We have accredited one already. And we have organized the criteria on how do you develop, when do you embed them in the work. I was tempted to start from the right side with the consortium agreement, as we have said how important it is, but I need to explain first the left side. Just to explain how this works, is a very innovative program, very creative, looking to Juan. We have these knowledge-creating teams that combine people from very different disciplines and all the countries that design the program and deliver the modules. The modules are not delivered by one university. So this makes it very transdisciplinary and intercultural from the beginning. And we have also a lot of contact with the employers. The challenges are provided by them during the master, but also we have an internship now in the new edition. And we have 30 CTS of a challenge that they prepare with the external stakeholders. And I will not go through all of it. The students can bring their own challenges to work in the classroom. So it's very student-centered in this way. And I want to emphasize the interculturality and mobility. The students they can access from any discipline, and we use an algorithm to distribute them in the partner universities, ensuring several disciplines and several areas of Europe. So the interculturality exposure is not only with the mobility, it's in the classrooms from the minute one. And many of them, they don't start in their countries, okay? So we organize it like this. They are connected. It's a synchronous program where the campus, the physical campus are connected by hybrid classroom. So at 10, the lecturer is from Budapest, at 12 from Barcelona. So it's complex, but and challenging for everyone. And let me talk about the challenges of this part of designing and developing. There is a lot of need for help and support to the academic and the administrative staff. We use a lot of training because it's intercultural, transdisciplinary, technological enhanced. So we invest a lot, but we also have one educationalist by module helping the teachers to go through this, okay? So this is part of the intercultural and transdisciplinary journey. And also we have a strong focus on inclusivity. We have a joint office composed by people from all the partners. They do a need analysis from the beginning to all the students. We take out the word special needs because all of them have needs. And it's true that there is a problem with the cost of the mobility and to be really inclusive. Going to the second or the right side, start the consortium agreement as soon as possible. We invest normally a lot of time in the academic side, but this takes a lot of time, okay? And this is, as we hear, it's crucial. It's crucial because put the expectations of how are we going to manage this, but also it's a quality assurance matter. You need to define how are you going to proceed before starting. So I think this is important. We have several joint structures that are formed by people from our partners that give a global support and a local support. So we have an administrative unit that do the enrollment, and everyone has a role there, but they are also giving support locally. The services are joined, the admission, the rules and regulations, and so on. As I said, diversity acts at a very continuously during the program. During the admission process, they are onboarded at the beginning, and whenever they need support on that, I think we are proud of this. You can see the parchment. This is the one with 5. I have not the one with 9 yet, and the 20 pages of the diploma supplement. That would be 30 something or 40 when we are 9. And to highlight some challenges, we needed specific rules and regulations. And because the master is completely different in everything. We have programmatic assessment that is not implemented in our home universities yet. We have a completely different admission process and so on. So this was something that required time, and I explained it yesterday in the workshop. The universities need to be generous and not try to say, my rules and regulations or my procedure is the good one and the one that we cannot miss. Just ensure that only respect the very red lines. All the other, take it out, because I think Alexander said it before. There are not so many reasons to keep the things like that, but it takes time, and also it's for example, for the professionals, the procedures are completely different. So they are used to work in a consolidated environment, and this is not. So this is an innovative thing, and they need to work on that. And the fragmented ITs. We are working very hard on interoperability to do it more seamless. And let me finish why we designed it like this. This was floating in the first call, some of these criteria. But we did like this because we think that, well, we don't think, we know now that this is meaningful for the students and for employers and for society. So the graduates were very impressed about the ability of the interculturality environment. They learned that even communicating English is not that easy because of the cultural filters, but also the employers make it very valuable because interculturality is now at home, not for people that is going abroad. It's happening here. They are also impressed by this challenge-driven learning and what the skills that the student has, and to the readiness for this digital innovation. And the students also were amazed about having access to so many university resources, many resources in a wide sense, professors, infrastructures, and so on. So I think that I was explaining that in the information sessions, we tell them, this is not for everyone because it's challenging. You are not going to study traditionally and in a very different environment, but this is part of the game. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marichel, and thank you to all of our poster presenters. We are running late, of course, very late. So what I will propose to all of you in the room is that we go on our lunch break and at 1:15, so 1:15, you will all go to your breakout rooms, right? Like yesterday, so the students will be downstairs waiting below the lunch area. We'll be waiting to guide you towards your breakout rooms. Again, the number of your table that will be on the sign of the student is on the back of your little batch, right? And you will have the opportunity in that same lobby to roam the room and look at the posters. We have also 3 additional posters that are there in the room, beyond the 8 ones that you've heard of today. And so you'll have time to discuss with the poster presenters there, and to take closely more pictures, of course, because they're a bit far here. And all the posters will, of course, be available after our workshop on the FOREU4ALL website. So thank you again to all of our presenters, and have a good lunch break, everyone.